It is a quiet day thousands of years ago. The sun is beginning to set over an ancient landscape. A small group of early humans is gathered together. But something is wrong. One of them is lying on the ground, completely still. They speak to him. He does not answer. They touch his shoulder. He does not move. His chest is no longer rising. His skin is growing cold. Today, when someone dies, we have an entire system waiting for us. We have hospitals, doctors, and certificates. We have funeral homes, wooden caskets, and quiet graveyards. We have ancient religions and modern philosophies to tell us what death means and where the person has gone. But what about the very first humans? Before religion was organized, before science existed, before there was a single word for funeral, what did they do when someone simply stopped? To understand this, we have to imagine what early humans actually understood about death. In the deep past, survival was a daily struggle. Death was common, but it was also a mystery. At first, when an early human died, the rest of the group likely felt a deep, heavy confusion. We know that animals feel grief. Mother chimpanzees have been seen carrying their babies long after they have passed away. Elephants will return to the bones of their family members, touching them gently with their trunks. Early humans absolutely felt this same crushing sadness. But for the earliest hominins, a dead body was also a severe danger. In the wild, a body attracts predators. Wolves, big cats, and scavengers would smell it. Leaving a body near the camp meant the whole family was in danger. Because of this, archaeologists believe the very first human response to death was practical. They had to move the body away. In Spain, there's a deep, dark cave system known as the Pit of Bones. Inside, researchers found the remains of nearly 30 ancient human ancestors who lived over 400,000 years ago. They were not carefully laid to rest. They were dropped down a deep shaft. It seems cold to us now, but it was a matter of survival. They had to hide the bodies to protect the living. But as human brains grew larger, something incredible began to happen. Our ancestors started to think differently. They didn't just see a dangerous object that needed to be hidden. They saw a member of their family. They saw a friend. They started to feel that the person was still there somehow. And so, about 100,000 years ago, human behavior shifted. Instead of dropping bodies into deep pits to hide them from animals, they began to dig. They dug into the earth. They placed the bodies inside, and they covered them with dirt. This is the invention of the burial, and it is one of the most beautiful turning points in human history. Why did they do this? At first, burying a body was still a good way to hide it from scavengers. But if we look closely at ancient graves, we see that it became something much deeper. They were no longer trying to protect themselves from the body. They were trying to protect the body from the world. Imagine an ancient mother burying her child. She knows the ground is cold. She knows the night is dark. Archaeologists have found ancient graves where the bodies were curled up tightly, pulling their knees to their chests like they were sleeping in the fetal position. Perhaps they were wrapped in animal skins, tucked in for a rest they would never wake up from. But then, the burials became even stranger. Around 100,000 years ago, in a cave in modern-day Israel, humans buried a mother and her young child. But they didn't just put them in the dirt. They painted them. The ancient humans found a mineral called red ochre. They ground it into a powder and covered the bodies in bright, deep red. Why red? Many researchers believe it was because red is the color of blood. Blood is the color of life. By covering the dead with red dust, perhaps these ancient people were trying to give life back to them. Or perhaps they wanted them to look warm and alive for wherever they were going next. And that leads us to the biggest mystery of all. Where did they think the dead were going?
For millions of years, if an animal found a sharp rock or a good piece of food, it kept it to survive. Giving away a valuable tool to a dead body makes no sense in nature. The dead cannot hunt. The dead cannot eat. Yet as time went on, humans started putting their most valuable possessions into the dark earth. In graves across the world, archaeologists have found bodies surrounded by treasures. A jawbone of a wild boar placed carefully in a man's hands. A beautiful deer antler laid across a child's chest. In Russia, there's a famous ancient burial site called Sungir. Here, humans buried a man and 2 children about 30,000 years ago. When they uncovered them, they were shocked. The bodies were covered in thousands of tiny, hand-carved ivory beads. Carving just one of these beads took about an hour of intense, difficult work. These people spent thousands of hours creating these beautiful clothes, only to bury them underground forever. Why? Because to them, the dead person was not gone. They believed the person was going on a journey, and they wanted to make sure they had their tools, their clothes, and their dignity when they arrived. This is the very beginning of human imagination. It is the birth of the afterlife. The moment a human placed a tool into a grave, they were saying, "I believe you still exist somewhere. I believe you will need this." And they did something else, too. In northern Iraq, inside Shanidar Cave, researchers found the grave of a Neanderthal man. When they tested the soil around his body, they found massive amounts of ancient flower pollen. While scientists still debate if the flowers were placed by humans or by bees, the image it creates is powerful. Across the ancient world, humans began leaving flowers, pine branches, and soft leaves in the graves of those they loved. When you look at all of this, the digging, the red paint, the tools, the clothes, the flowers, a profound realization hits you. We have changed almost everything about how we live. We drive cars, we fly in the sky, we look at screens, we cure diseases. Our ancient ancestors would not recognize our world. But if an ancient human from 100,000 years ago stood in a modern cemetery, they would understand exactly what was happening. They would see us washing our loved ones and dressing them in their best clothes. They would see us digging a hole in the earth. They would see us gently lowering them down to protect them from the elements. They would see us dropping flowers into the dark. The way we say goodbye has not changed in 100,000 years. Before we had writing, before we had cities, before we had wheels, we had love. And we had the desperate, beautiful hope that death is not the end. The first human to bury a friend did not know science, but they knew that someone was missing. And they reached into the dark, leaving a beautiful bead, a quiet stone, a silent promise, hoping that somehow, somewhere, they would wake up again.